we are going to talk about equivalent fractions, which we have briefly touched on. Let's do a quick review of mixed and improper, or just the way we write a fraction. So here we can see that each whole is cut into fours. So we know our denominator is going to be fours. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6/4 showing. That is my improper. And then if I wanted to write it as a mixed fraction, well, I can see that I have one whole. They are broken into fours. The denominator is always going to be the same. And this non-whole is 2/4. So I have 1 2/4 is my mixed fraction because it's mixed with a whole and a decimal. And then my improper is 6/4. So then equivalent is kind of like this. This is writing it two different ways, but it means the same thing. So can we write a fraction a different way, but also divide it a different way? So let's just stick with this one whole right now. And if I have, and I'm going to do it as a rectangle. So here I have one whole, or I have 4/4. But now, if I make this equivalent but different, let's draw a line and pretend that these are all now equal slices. How many pieces are there? Well, there's 8 pieces and 8 pieces filled in, but it is still one whole. So it is still the same amount if we think of this as a chocolate bar. They're smaller pieces because now our denominator is bigger, but it's still one whole. If I did that again, now I wouldn't stop there because now my pieces aren't equal, and I'm going to do it here. My denominator is now a 4 times 4, so my denominator is 16, so even smaller pieces, and there's 16 pieces put in. So these are equivalent fractions, things that you can cut the fraction into more or less pieces without changing the amount that is shaded in. In grade 4, our job is to understand that visually. In grade 5, we start talking about, well, how does a 4 become an 8? Well, 4 times 2 is 8. How does 4 become 8 times 2? And you start to notice the multiplication patterns. So as we work through this, some of you will start to see those number relationships naturally, but the pictures are what we want to look at. So let's look at a half. Okay, so here we now have 2/4, which from what I've seen, most of you are comfortable with saying, well, that's the same as a half. And we know it's the same as a half because if we had 1 square and 2 squares, there is 1 out of 2 blue squares shaded in. So the same thing now is, I'm going to put this here, and let's say 1/2. We have 2/4. What if we divide this line down the middle? What's our denominator now? How many equal pieces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 equal pieces. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 shaded in. So 4/8 is the same as 1/2, as the same as 2/4. They all have the same value. They all have a value of decimal 5, of half, but in different size pieces. Okay, that is what an equivalent fraction is. Something that has the same value, but has different size pieces, so different amounts of pieces, but all equals the same amount of shading. For those of you thinking numbers, how does a 2 become an 8? We times by 4. Same with a 1. 1 times 4 becomes a 4. How does a 2 become a 4? How does a 4 become an 8? Okay, think about that multiplication rule. Still not sure, so let's do some playing around. So the equality lab is where you get to play. You can use circles, and you can see here is the example I started with of 6/4 is the same as 3/2. I can change the denominator to be 6s, So here, and oh, it's not going to let me move from that side. 1 whole, or 3/3, is the same as 6 sixes. Let's throw another third in there. And you can see that, depending on your visualization skills, each of these thirds has been cut in half to make sixes. So you can see that there's twice as many. And if I made this into ninths, so the same amount of shading stays, it's just the numbers and the amount of pieces change. For me, I personally find it easier to see with the rectangles. I can line it up a lot easier. So if I took away there, so 1/2 is the same as 3 sixes, or 2/4. Maybe I want, let's make this a larger one. 3/4, and you can see that the lines go the same as 3 sixes. Now some of you are really comfortable with fraction bars, and you can see this on the number line. So if you would rather the fraction strips, you can allow Flash, and up here in the corner, so this is the Mathy tools, and you can put the numbers right on there, and then this bar will show us our equivalent. So you can see all of those are the same sizes, whether you have 1/2 or 2/4 or 3 sixes or 4/8. So this is another tool that could help you. It does not go anywhere past tenths, and you could drag things out, and you can see that you can do no labels, some labels. So that's another tool. So the game again starts with level 1, and this one goes to 8, and you start here, and now it is matching. So here is 1 whole, here is 1 whole. Check it, good to go. Now sometimes it might be a pitcher with a pitcher. So 1/2 and 1/2. Now usually I wouldn't like having 2 different wholes, right? Because this is a square and this is a circle to show equivalence, but they're just showing that they both represent half, but their value could be different. Okay, keep going. Let me just look at a harder level. They just get into bigger numbers. Okay, so this is where you may not get to all the levels, and that's fine, because some of these start using your multiplying and dividing skills. You might be able to do some of these, right? So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 10. Is there any of these that are 8 out of 10? So there's 5, 6, 7 out of 10. Oh, look at this one. Let's see. Did I count that right? No. So it's saying, I can't see this, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 10. Oh, that one's 7 out of 10. So it's saying this one's bigger than that, and it's showing me that it's 1.5. So this one's just more than 1.5. So let me try this one and check. So if the big numbers scare you, that's fine. They're not beyond you. I know you can do them, but do the ones that you're comfortable with. And then if you get to a point you're like, I don't know what to do with these, then just screenshot where you're at. You either can screenshot the way you know it, or do a screenshot here, and it will save to your computer.